Hello Imbibers, welcome to today's session, welcome to the Abhyas batch, and today children we're going to discuss about the flower. Of course I know it is one of the most important topics and little bit more confusing also when it comes to the morphology. So I have taken up this topic only to make you understand how exactly we're going to deal with the flower position, ovary position, and what kind of flowers are existing in the morphology. Different kind of a morphology is existing with the flower, with their basically dissection and everything, the ovary position and etc. So let's just wait for another people to join the class and then we'll start. So children, if you have anything related to or any particular topic which you wanted to discuss, you can always send the request, leave in the chat box. Let me know, is there any particular topic in general you wanted to talk about? We will discuss this over here. Okay, so morphology of flowering plants in general terms. Let's talk about what exactly the word morphology. And before that, let me introduce you to myself. I am Anam Khan. I'll be your botany expert for your session, and we're going to discuss all the topics related to your botany, be it plant physiology, be it anatomy, be it plant kingdom, biological classification, cell biology, cell division, etc. All the things will be discussed. Each and every topic and concept will be discussed through these sessions. How I have taken this topic today, because I know this particular topic is quite confusing, so we're going to discuss this today. Okay, and the respective sessions, respective topics will post it on the YouTube, and you can basically join us ever on the live class. Okay, so talking about the morphology, the word morphology children exist. The word morphology means that the external features of the plants. When we talk about the morphology, we means that we are talking about the external appearance, the external parts, or what something you can see by your eyes. That is what you mean by the morphology. And today we are going to discuss about the symmetry of the flower and position of the ovary in the flower, because according to the symmetry there are classification with the flower, and according to the ovary position there is a classification of the flowers. Okay, on the basis of the position and symmetry we have kept flowers into different categories. Okay, because they do not possess the similar external features. So starting the today's session, let's see what we have to study in the coming session. Children, the concepts which will be covered in today's lecture would be the symmetry of the flower, the types of symmetry of the flowers, the bract, what is the bract, okay, and on the basis of the position of the ovary, these types of flowers are existing. We will discuss about what is the type, which particular type which will be represented by which particular concept. Okay, so we are going to discuss about everything in this session. Talking about what exactly is the flower. Children, you know the flower is of course the most attractive part of the plant. Anytime you walk down the garden or walk down any lane which have good beautiful flowers, you stop, you see that, you admire it, because the flowers is the most attractive part of the plant. Yes, of course, the plant and also the reproductive part. Of course, to have new flowers, to have new fruits, to have everything is because of the flowers, because they have this reproductive part. The angiospermic plants, of course you know because you have learned the plant kingdom, the angiospermic plants have the flowers, or the plants which bear the flowers are the most advanced in the plant kingdom. Okay, we will discuss that also. Okay, and you know that flowers of course is modified. Okay, it's of course the modified shoot have a typical kind of a flora which have calyx, corolla, of course the petals, sepals, everything collectively, and creating a beautiful external feature which is called the flower. So today we are going to discuss about this beautiful feature of the plant. Okay, next children, we have on the basis of a symmetry of a flower, what kind of a symmetry it possesses. We have identified that flowers have three types of symmetry existing. Okay, what is symmetry? Simply children, a flower in general is called as modified shoot. Just now I have tell you. The flowers in terms is called as modified shoot, and it is the reproductive part of a plant. That's what I was telling you about. This is what we were discussing, that the reproductive part of the plant is the flower. Okay, and of course it's the modified shoot. But a flower are not, all flowers are not symmetrical. When we say symmetry, what do you mean by symmetry? We means all the things, all the petals, sepals are arranged in that manner that appears a very nice symmetry, nice arrangement of the petals and sepals. But all the flowers are not that symmetrical. Yet of course they might appear beautiful, but they are not that symmetrical. On the basis of that symmetry, we have classified, we have termed all the flowers among 3 categories. We have described them in the 3 categories, and that is what is the radial symmetry, bilateral symmetry and the asymmetry. Of course, we are going to discuss each and every one of them, don't worry, but these are the categories in which we are keeping all the flowers on the basis of their symmetrical or not so symmetrical appearance. And in general, we can also say that whether we can basically cut them into 2 equal halves or not. If or not, they are that much symmetrical that if we try to dissect a plant, they might get into 2 equal parts, they might not cut into 2 equal parts, and they might not cut at all. Okay, not even possible. So children, on the basis of that, the radial symmetry, bilateral symmetry and asymmetry we have to discuss. So let's discuss each and every symmetry in detail. Talking about the radial symmetry, children, what is the radial symmetry? We'll see that. What is radial symmetry? In general, when I talk about the radial symmetry, children, the radial symmetry or the actinomorphic, this term is very important because when we discuss about the floral formula, this term will be coming now and often because you know the floral formula is difficult to remember, and this term is very important because when we are discussing about certain family, a family will possess certain kind of a symmetry. So describe, this is also one of the most important feature of a family. So when we are discussing any family, when we are describing any family's characteristics, the word actinomorphic is something we will introduce. We will not say radial symmetry directly, we will say actinomorphic flowers. This family has actinomorphic flowers. Okay, this is the technical term we use in the floral formulas and to describe any kind of a family, to describe their characteristics. Okay, talking about the actinomorphic flowers, children, they are characterized by the radial symmetry. It means if a flower is radically symmetrical, if a flower possesses the radial symmetry, if you basically cut flower or any incision in the flower center, it will divide into 2 halves. It means from any radial plane, if I try to cut the flower from any radial plane, eventually it has to divide into 2 equal parts. It means the radial symmetry is termed as that if we put the incision in the flower through any radial plane, it will divide into 2 equal parts, and that flowers are possessing the radial symmetry, and that is called the actinomorphic flowers. Okay, and also known as star-shaped, regular or polysymmetric. Such kind of a flowers which possess actinomorphic or radial symmetry, which are actinomorphic and possess radial symmetry, are also called as star-shaped, regular or polysymmetric. Just I would say synonyms just to introduce, but the technical term is always the actinomorphic flowers. Okay, and if we talk about the plant kingdom, if we talk about the, not exactly plant kingdom, if we talk about the angiospermic family, if we talk about angiosperms, the flower bearing plants, the majority of the flowers are actinomorphic. Yes, there are many flowers in the angiospermic family that all of them are actinomorphic. It means they possess the radial symmetry and can be cut into two equal parts through any radial plane. Okay. And actinomorphic flowers may be separated into 3 or more identical sections and each identical to their when based on the center rotational axis. It means if we basically cutting an actinomorphic flowers and they are being separated, all the parts of the particular flower, if they are separated, they will possess the equal identical sections. If I am cutting a flower and I will see them, I will separate them, all the parts, I will see all the parts are identical. Not that one is short, one is long, one is a little bit slightly, I would say not having a symmetry kind of a thing, not appearing that it was symmetrical. Some part is short, some part is long, some part is having short leaves, long petals, short petals. No, the whole symmetry of the flower, if we are dividing them, if we are seeing them in the after cutting that, we will see that all the flowers possess the equal and identical shapes. Okay. Next, the plants which possess such kind of a symmetry, the plants which have the actinomorphic symmetry or called as actinomorphic are some of the examples we have as lilies, petunias, wild roses, buttercups are the some of the examples, just some of the examples of the actinomorphic plants. Okay. So, now I expect, now you understand when I say the actinomorphic plants, I mean that plants or flowers which have radial symmetry and can be cut into two equal halves through any radial plane. Okay. They will show certain kind of a symmetry that if I try to cut them from any radial plane, it will divide into two equal parts, and each and every part, if we separate them, will possess the identical shapes. Clear? And most of the flowering plants, most of the angiospermic families are actinomorphic, possess the radial symmetry. So, let us have a more clear picture of what exactly I am talking about. So, let us see what exactly is the radial symmetry I was talking about. Let us click on this button, let us see what is radial symmetry. As you can see, children, as you can see, through any radial plane, see again this flower through any radial plane, if I cut it through any radial plane, it probably will divide into equal parts. See, all the parts are technically equal, and this is the hibiscus flower. This is the hibiscus flower showing us the radial symmetry or the actinomorphic flowers. Now, you must have understood when I said cutting from the any radial plane, it will divide into all identical parts. Clear? Moving forward to the another category of the symmetry, next we have, let us see what we have next, is the bilateral symmetry, also termed as zygomorphic flowers, and the technical term is also the zygomorphic. Talking about the zygomorphic or the bilateral symmetry. I know, children, you might be very much familiar to this term bilateral radial if you have learned about the animal kingdom also, because animals also show symmetry, you know. So, these terms are very common with the animals and plants as well. Okay. So, and of course, they mean the same there also and here also. So, now you have understood this is like something which is very same from both of them, for animals also, for plants also. Talking about the zygomorphic plants, talking about the bilateral symmetry, the technical term used for the bilateral symmetry is zygomorphic, and in this kind of a symmetry, if the flower is divided into any two equal part, it has to be one vertical plane. It means there should be a proper vertical radial plane, only one proper plane, that if we dissect it, it will divide into two parts. What was the radial symmetry? We are cutting it from any plane and it will eventually divide into equal parts. But with the bilateral symmetry, there is only one plane, one vertical plane. If we only cut through that plane, that will only lead to the division of two equal parts, not any radial plane. So there is a specific part from where it has to be cut to have two equal parts. Clear? Examples which possess the bilateral symmetry are the peas, lentils, gulmohar. Children, please, these are some of the examples. These are very common also. You might get a question from this also. Okay, sometimes if you ever attempt the NEET examination also, or any kind of examination, children, you might always get asked with the symmetry. Okay, this particular, if there is a question that the peas possess what kind of a symmetry, okay, or the lentils possess what kind of a symmetry, or the gulmohar, which is very common name also, the gulmohar possess which kind of a symmetry, you know, you're talking about, they're talking about the answer should be bilateral symmetry, because they can be cut into two equal half only with the one plane. Okay, the body plan of an organism with the bilateral symmetrical is divided into identical mirror halves in the sagittal plane. It means two mirror like images will be developed if we are cutting them in the one particular plane. If there is a particular plane in which you are cutting that particular flower into two identical parts, they will create a mirror images of each other. You know what are mirror images, children? You are very much familiar about this word term called mirror images. So if we are cutting the flowers which possess the bilateral symmetry, the planes, the two parts which are generated will be like of a mirror images of each other, or the mirror halves of each other. Clear? The orchids and the pea families are examples of plants exhibiting bilateral symmetry. They are only talking about the families only. The peas, the families of a pea, and the orchids possess the bilateral symmetry. This is a question I might also ask such kind of questions. The peas and the orchid families possess the bilateral symmetry. Okay, they possess it only. In general, not some of them, all the family or the plants belonging to peas and orchid family, they will possess the bilateral symmetry. So let's see what exactly is the bilateral symmetry. We have a proper depiction that how basically it is done. Let's see how we are showing the bilateral symmetry through this video. Let's see. As we click here, I see if this is the pea flower, only one single plane, which is this one, and if it is cut, it is cutting into two halves. Not possible that if I try to cut it from this plane or this plane, there will be not two identical planes, but only from this plane if it is cut, it will create two identical parts of the pea plant. Okay, this is what is the bilateral symmetry. This is what we call the bilateral flowers or zygomorphic flowers which possess the bilateral symmetry. Okay, so this is about the another category which a flower possess, which is the bilateral symmetry. So what we have learnt about the radial symmetry. We know what is radial symmetry. Now we know what is bilateral symmetry, and we also know the technical term used to describe that symmetry is one is the zygomorphic, the other is the actinomorphic. If the term actinomorphic comes over, you will definitely assume it that it is we are talking about the radial symmetry, and if the term zygomorphic comes up, you will assume that we are talking about the bilateral symmetry. Okay, clear, children? I hope let's study the third category of the flower symmetry, which is the asymmetrical flowers. Yes, there are certain flowers which cannot be divided through any plane into two equal half. Not possible. Okay, so when a flower cannot be divided into two equal halves from any plane, you cut it from any plane, there is not a plane only existing in that flower that if we cut through it, we can basically have two equal parts. From any plane you cut, it will not create two parts, two equal parts. So those flowers which cannot create, which is not possible that if we cut them through any plane, we can create two equal parts. Those flowers are called asymmetric flowers. They are called asymmetrical flowers, or asymmetry they possess, which are example canna. This is very important, children. Sometimes this question comes up a lot of time. The canna is a very popular example of asymmetry. Okay, so please try to remember this particular name. This particular plant, this particular flower will possess the asymmetry. It will not cut into two equal half through any plane. So let's see what I am saying, what exactly how it is being depicted through the video. We'll see it. We see that talking about the asymmetry, we know if this is canna flower, can you see, children? I don't know, I think from the visibility only, from the picture only, you can actually assume, ma'am, it cannot be cut into two equal half from any plane. Not possible only, as you see only, ma'am, this is not only possible, not from this plane, not from this plane, there could not be a proper plane to cut it into two equal half. It appears like that only, and that is why we have termed this as the asymmetrical flowers. Okay, the canna flower is an asymmetrical, we cannot divide into two equal planes from any part. I think this is very much clear. This is a clear depiction that why we call the canna flower as an asymmetrical. I don't know what could be a best possible thing to show you that what is asymmetry. This is asymmetry. This is how you say that flower is an asymmetrical. Please keep remember this particular example, might comes up a lot of time. Okay, that the peas are responsible for pea family, orchid families, or for bilateral symmetry. Okay, then we showed the hibiscus, the lilies, they show the radial symmetry. Then we have this canna flower which show the asymmetry, which is completely asymmetrical. Clear? So now we have gone through all the flower categories on the basis of their symmetry. We have categorized them into three, which is the actinomorphic, zygomorphic and asymmetry. Okay, actinomorphic, zygomorphic and asymmetry. Clear, children? I hope this is very clear. So now you must have understood only that what flowers on the basis of their symmetry, how exactly they divide, and what are the flowers which are do not divide, how to name them. The technical term is important, because when you are going to discuss about the floral families, floral formulas, or the depiction of certain family, these technical terms come up. So you need to remember those technical terms only. If somebody says actinomorphic, it should immediately click into the mind that this is the person is talking about the radial symmetry. Zygomorphic, bilateral symmetry. Asymmetrical, asymmetry. Okay, simply they cannot be cut through any plane. So these three you have already discussed. Let's see on the basis of the ovary how the flower is being named, on the basis of the position of the ovary. But before that, let's see what we have next. We have bract. What is the bract? Because it's important to tell you about the bract. A bract is an accessory structure that is associated with the flowers. Children, a bract is the structure associated with the flowers. It is modification of the leaves. These are the modification of the leaves. If you could see, this is the bract. I know I wanted to basically show you, this is the bract. This is the bract. This part of the flower is called as bract, and it is a modified leaf. It's a modification of the leaf. The anatomical position is just below the flower base. Just below the flower base, there is a green structure which we called as bract. Okay, let's just forget it. I know many of you have seen brinjal. Yes or no? You have seen the brinjal, right? Everybody knows about the bagan. Okay. Can you see that green part which is attached to that purple shaped bagan or brinjal? Yes or no? That is bract. That is bract. We call it as persistent bract also. It persists. Sometimes it falls off, but sometimes it persists. That is what you called as bract. Yes, the base of the flower, where the base with the flower attached, just below the base there is a green part which we called as a bract. And any flower which possess the bract is called bractigate. And some flowers which do not possess the bract are called ebractigate. Okay, these are the certain terms which will be used in again when we describe the families, because we are going to discuss about the families also. Okay, what is the main function of the bract? The main role of the bract is to attract pollinators. The main function of the bract is to attract the pollinators for the pollination. You know, certain insects pollinate, certain birds pollinate. Yes, there are certain pollinating agents, and thus the function of the bract is to attract those pollinators for the pollination, because if there is no pollination, how will there be the fertilization, how will the new plant will be formed, or the new flowers will be formed, or new fruit? Of course not new fruit, or fruit would be formed, or seeds will be formed. So the reproduction is the main, sexual reproduction is the main characteristics of the angiospermic plants. So the pollination for the fertilization is absolutely necessary. So the bract is for the attraction of the flowers. So this is about the bract, just an introduction or maybe just a clear description of the bract. What is the bract? Moving forward, children, next we have again, that is what I was talking about, that on the basis of the ovary position, we have divided flowers into 3 different categories again, because the flower position, the ovary position according to the other parts of the flowers, which is calyx, corolla, is absolutely important. So not every flower is very symmetrical in appearance, and the ovaries position is very much varying from one another. So on the basis of the ovary position, we have also categorized plants or especially flowers into 3 categories. So we know that calyx, corolla, we know about the calyx, corolla. Based on the position of the calyx, corolla and androecium, which is the male reproductive part, and with respect to ovary, of course you know gynoecium, which is the female reproductive part. On the thalamus, the flowers are described as hypogynous, perigynous and epigynous. We will discuss all of them in detail, but on the basis of all the floral part and all the androecium and gynoecium with respect to the thalamus and the flower, how the arrangement of all the floral accessory with respect to ovary is done, and what we call them is being categorized into 3, which is the hypogynous, perigynous and epigynous. Talking about the hypogynous, the very first category of the flower position, what is hypo? The term hypo, can you just somewhere relate to this, that hyper, high, hypo, something which would be high, on the higher level. Just saying that, you can assume, just using the common sense, that you can assume, talking about the word hypo, it means something which is on the higher side, on the hypo side. Gynous is the gynoecium, the ovary, the female reproductive part we are talking about. So I'll assume that hypo means higher, gynous means gynoecium. Okay, so now the term itself explains that what is the hypogynous flowers. It means in this kind of a flower, the ovary seems to be superior than the other 3 roles, which is calyx, corolla. All the 3 other roles will be on the shorter place or on the lower side. The ovary would be the highness, on the higher level. Just the term itself is very clear. It says hypogynous, higher level, gynous means gynoecium. So hypogynous flowers are those flowers in which the ovary is at the superior position, and androecium, calyx, corolla are just below it on the lower level. Arrangement is such kind of arrangement in which the ovary is very at a higher level, androecium, calyx, corolla on the lower level, and that is why we are also calling them as superior ovary. Superior ovary. Here ovary is positioned as high on the thalamus and the other parts are below it. Example, tomato, tulip, brinjal, etc. So the plants which possess certain kind of a superior ovary or hypogynous flowers are the tomato, tulip, brinjal, etc. Okay, let's see exactly what we are talking about when we say the superior ovary. Let's click on it. Let's see what are hypogynous ovary. So children, as you can see, gynoecium, thalamus, androecium, petals, sepals. Ovary, thalamus, superior ovary. So children, as you can see, the ovary at a higher level, we can also put it more higher, not a problem. But all the other parts of the flowers or the other parts of the rolls, which is maybe the thalamus, the androecium, the petals, the sepals, all are at the lower level. The ovary is slightly higher than all of them. So this is the clear depiction of the superior ovary or the hypogynous flowers, in which ovary is at the superior level while the other parts of the rolls are at the lower level. You can also just move it more up, it's okay, but still how somewhere it is on the little bit higher side from the other parts of the rolls. And such kind of hypogynous flowers are being possessed by tomato, tulip, brinjal, etc. Please always remember the examples. Examples are always important, especially the common examples, not a very detailed example, something which you also use very often, see very often. There are certain examples, you know what is tomato, you know what is brinjal, you know what is tulip. You are very much familiar, you must have seen also. So something which is very common, you should know about it. Okay, you are not a taxonomist, I know, but it's okay to learn about all those examples and to remember that, especially the common examples. So talking about this is the hypogynous ovary. Let's see what we have next. What kind of a category of the flower we have next? We have the perigynous ovary or the perigynous flowers. Talking about it, children, when we say about the perigynous flowers or the perigynous ovary, you know, just now we have talked about the perigynous flowers. This is about the perigynous flowers, perigynous or the ovary position in which the ovary is in the center of all the rolls and almost at the same level. Simple. In that one, the ovary was at the superior level. In this one, the ovary has come at the same level. Perigynous means same level. Same level. It means all the parts of the rolls and the ovary are just edge to edge, just next to each other. Okay, they are all at the same level. We can also say the ovary is half superior or half inferior. There is also an alternative name all to this, half superior, not exactly superior but not exactly inferior also. Yes, it is not below it, it is not above it. So we are calling it as half inferior, half superior ovary. Simple, not explaining it much, simple, not even superior to the other parts of the rolls, not even inferior to the other parts of the rolls. We are calling it as half superior and half inferior ovary. Okay, and such plants, flowers which possess perigynous flowers, which we call them, the example of that is rose, peach, cherry. Again, a very common example. Everybody has seen such, everybody has seen roses, everybody has seen peach and everybody has seen the cherry also. So these are the common examples to the perigynous flowers. Children, can you see that first the ovary was high, it was high, then now we have come to the same level. And now I think you must have understood the next part would be what? The next part would be what? Before that, let's see what exactly how it appears when we talk about the inferior ovary. If I click on this, let's see what are the perigynous ovary. All the parts are at the same level. Okay, and they are basically at the same level. Neither the ovary is half the superior or neither the ovary is inferior. Okay, so this is about the perigynous ovary. Talking about the last flower description on the basis of their ovary, we have the epigynous flowers. What is the epigynous? Children, so now though you have understood only when we have said the epigynous flowers. In the epigynous flowers, the ovary is present inferior to the calyx, corolla and androecium. Now it is completely inferior to calyx, corolla and androecium. It means inferior means it be at the lower level, completely inferior to the other parts of the roll. The thalamus encloses the ovary inside and the other three rolls are located above it, and the plants which possess such kind of a flowers are daffodils, cucumber, etc. Superior, half inferior, half superior and completely inferior. So, can you see that we are basically lowering down the level of the ovary. First we have studied about the superior ovary, next we have studied about the half inferior and half superior ovary, and the last we have studied about the completely inferior ovary. So, hypogynous, perigynous, epigynous. Hypo, peri, epi. You need to remember it like that. It will be easy for you to grasp all, to remember also, to think also that hypo means higher, peri means same level, epi means lower level. Let us see exactly how the perigynous ovary looks like in a flower. All the parts of the plants are at the same level, and all the rolls also, all the other parts of the plant are also at the same level. So, the whole session was about the flower only, especially with this symmetry. Next, it is about the ovary position. So, whole was about this, how exactly symmetrical, on the basis of symmetry, how we have divided all the flowers, and on the basis of ovary position, what we call them, also divided into 3 categories. Okay, so now I expect that you must have understood only that what kind of a symmetry does a flower possess and what we call them on the basis of the position of the ovary. Okay, actinomorphic, zygomorphic and asymmetrical, hypogynous, perigynous and epigynous ovaries. Okay, let us see what we have next. I guess we have a question. Just now, because you know children, we have already discussed ovary is completely inferior in what? I expect the ovary is inferior in which condition? Hypogynous, epigynous, perigynous. I don't know the answer, you need to tell me. Hypogynous, epigynous, perigynous. Inferior. We know we are talking about the hypo, high. The ovary needs to be inferior in epigynous condition. Okay, the ovary is positioned to inferior in other parts and all the floral parts are just below it. Okay, moving on to the next, I would suggest next would be again the drag and drop. So, children, you need to drag and drop according to the kind of symmetry they possess. If you see that what kind of symmetry they are possessing, first is the actinomorphic, zygomorphic, asymmetrical. So, if I drag that, this is somewhat seems like if I drag it to this, let us see whether I have answered correctly. Yes, you know when we talk about the asymmetric, when we talk about the symmetrical, when we talk about the all the symmetry of the plants, actinomorphic can be cut into any equal plane through any radial plane, only one radial plane, and from never we can cut into 2 equal half from any plane. So, these are the 3 categories of the symmetry. Next, children, the half inferior ovary is present in what? Just now also we have discussed this, I do not know the answer. Half inferior ovary of the flowers is possessed in what? Cotton, cucumber, peach, etc. I do not know whether it is right or not. Yes, the peach, just now I have also told you, please always remember the common answers, common examples when we talk about the flower. Next question is, the bracts are located above the flower or lower? Of course, they are located below the flowers, so the statement is completely false. It's not true. The bract is present in the lower part of the plant, just below the base. Okay, you know children, the fruit is the most edible part of the plant. The fruit is the something which we always consume. So the next session, whenever we are going to talk about after the flowers, we are going to talk about the types of fruit existing. The almond you eat is also a fruit, the walnut you eat is also a fruit, but the brinjal and cucumber also you eat is a fruit. Of course, you know, calling it as a vegetable, but they are kind of a fruit existing, okay, because we are coming from the flower only in the one or the other forms. Okay, so we are going to discuss about the type of fruit existing. Mango is also a fruit, apple is also a fruit, walnut is a fruit, cashew is a fruit. These all are fruits. So, the different kind of fruit existing. On the basis of that, we have also divided in the fruit into different categories. So, we are going to learn that also. Before we go children, before we end this session, let me introduce you. So, this is all we have studied all through the session. This is a summary of all the session. We have studied about the radial symmetry, bilateral symmetry, asymmetry. We know what are actinomorphic plants, we know what is bilateral. Actinomorphic can be cut into any plane, through any radial plane into equal half. Bilateral only through one single plane. Asymmetrical cannot be cut through any plane. Then we have hypogynous ovary, which is superior. Then we have perigynous ovary, which is half superior, half inferior. And then we have epigynous, which is completely inferior. Okay. So, on the basis of position of the ovary, we have also divided the flower into different categories, all that we have learned today. So, before we go children, let me introduce you. This is our Embibe app. Okay, you can just sign up and log in using your phone number. OTP will be generated, or you can basically enter through password also, all your call. And when you log into that, there will be different section: home, learn, practice, test. Okay, and then you can basically explore. In the learn chapter, if you go into the learn part, there will be live classes. So, all the classes from 11th standard will be, all the classes are scheduled over there with the respective session of each and every Embibe expert is there with the respect to physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, everything is there. So, please do join us on the Embibe app. Okay, and the next we have the Embibe lens. Children, this is an amazing innovation of the Embibers or the Embibe expert. So, whenever you have time, just go to the Play Store, download the Embibe lens app. You would just have to do what you do, you have to just open the lens and just scan your notebook, and it will catch up all the important keywords from that text, and it will show you nice and amazing 3D structure. Okay, so just go, scan, download it, scan it and explore everything in 3D. I am not joking, this is an amazing app. Please go and download it. Just use it and let me know how you basically felt when you saw every keyword and they have literally generated the 3D structures of that. Just scan, you have to just scan it, not type, you have to scan. Scan the text and it will give you nice 3D structure of every keyword it scans. Okay. And the last children, we have the Embibe Telegram channel. So, for any updates, for any kind of a news, for any kind of a respective session updates will be present in this Embibe Telegram channel. So, till then children, please take care. We will meet in the next session. Bye bye. Keep imbibing.
Keep imbibing. We believe in you.